The way we learn is always evolving. As learning moves toward a hybrid, just-in-time approach, how we create content for the classroom and at home must change. Not everyone learns the same, and virtual production is the next evolution in hybrid education. This technology is amazing. Like what you can do with real-time visual effects in the camera, bringing 3D environments and interactive XR objects to the faculty, to the type of work you're doing, it's mind-blowing. I mean, things that would have cost millions and millions of dollars to do even just a few short years ago, we can do right now with the equipment and the environment that we have today. It allows learners to engage in content in ways they never could before. It allows faculty to teach complex concepts or bring people to places they could never go on their own. But imagine now that you've created the course or you've taught your lecture in an immersive environment, and if a student has a VR headset, they can now come join you in that classroom, in that experience, on their own time. So they can now experience your lecture or experience the content you've created in an immersive environment themselves. I mean, think about the types of classes you could teach, like going on top of the Eiffel Tower or teaching on Mars or in another environment that you've never been able to take students to. Now you can take them to these places and bring them into the learning in ways you may never have thought possible.
Welcome. I'm Shravan Goli, Chief Product Officer here at Coursera. We're back with another installment of Coursera's ongoing series where I explore topics at the intersection of learning, technology, and innovation with fellow leaders. And to our audience, throughout today's episode, remember to add your comments and questions in the chat. Now, we'll try to address some live during today's conversation. Now, today, I'm very excited to be joined by Lauren Atkins Budde and Jeremy Nelson from the University of Michigan Center for Academic Innovation. Thank you both for coming on the show. Lauren, you are the Director of Open Learning Initiatives at the Center for Academic Innovation. Could you briefly help our audience understand what this role really entails?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having us today. This is actually a really exciting conversation to engage with. So in the simplest terms, at the Center for Academic Innovation at the University of Michigan, we collaborate with a wide variety of educators and experts from across the university and beyond to help the world learn new things in new ways. More specifically, that means we collaborate with faculty and external partners to ideate, design, develop, and engage learners in a wide variety of stackable learning experiences that can support a learner at any point in their lives, whether that's through, say, a just-in-time video explainer that helps make a really big concept more accessible in 2 minutes, or opportunities for discussion around timely topics through our Teach Out series, through massive open online courses that can help you level up your skills for your current job or your next job, and fully online or hybrid degree programs that can take your education a little bit further. Many of these experiences are sort of open to anyone in the world who wants to join our global learning community. And they also support current and prospective students as part of the blended future of the learning at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, I just saw James Devaney posting on LinkedIn, 10 million unique learners crossed. That's a massive milestone. Congratulations.
It's very exciting, and we're great to have like such a wonderful variety of learners engaging with learning with us every single day.
Awesome. Now, Jeremy, you are the director of the Extended Reality Initiative. That sounds like sci-fi to me. Now, what is this?
Like it too.
So what is this? How does it fit into the broader work for Lauren and others at the Center for Academic Innovation are doing?
Yeah, no, it is sci-fi to some degree at times, depending on what we're doing. Yeah, so this is an initiative at the university to really explore extended reality technologies and their impact on teaching and learning. And so primarily we were focused in the first couple of years on residential settings, so on campus, and how do we bring these experiences to learners. Obviously the pandemic had an impact on everything, and especially this. One of our other broad goals was bringing these to our online audience. And so I think we're at a great spot now, and with the talk today will describe more about what we're looking at and what we're hoping to do as we go forward.
Fantastic. I can't wait. So, audience, today we're exploring immersive learning, specifically what will it look like in the future and how is it positioned to transform education as we currently know it. To get started, let's take a look at what it actually is and a few examples of it in practice. So I'm going to start with Jeremy. How do you describe immersive learning and the technology powering it, the extended reality? I think we just generally abbreviated it simply as XR.
Yep. Yeah, I think about it as like an umbrella phrase, right? So there's a spectrum of technologies going from like the real world, the reality, kind of through augmented reality, where you think about perhaps Pokemon Go, or now you can try on furniture, try on clothes or furniture or makeup, Snapchat, Instagram filters, things like that, through virtual reality. So the full, you're fully immersed, you're in a digital world, everything's recreated for you. So along this spectrum of thinking through what that looks like, and a key component of that, which we're looking to explore with as we go forward, is interactive 360-degree video. And so you can experience that in an immersive environment, or you can experience it through a desktop or a mobile phone as well.
I see. Now that's actually quite interesting. Could you share 2 or 3 examples of XR in education? I mean, are there any sort of subjects or situations which are particularly suited to this kind of immersive learning?
Yeah, we think about kind of where this technology is most effective, and especially places that are hard to get to or perhaps dangerous, practicing real world skills or practicing soft skills that are hard to recreate or hard to set up a whole simulation or scenario. So a couple that come to mind that we've worked on over the last couple of years are, we had a nuclear reactor on campus for 50 years. It was decommissioned, and one of our faculty in nuclear engineering approached us about recreating that reactor in virtual reality, so students could go learn about the technologies in the reactor, the core principles.
That makes a lot of sense.
So we worked with the faculty and a number of students to recreate this reactor. And now students can go into the reactor, run these experiments, but also explore in different ways, like go into the reactor core and see what's happening, where you wouldn't do that in real life. Wouldn't do that for very long, at least. And then kind of on a different end, we've been working with nursing faculty that are training students on mannequins or certain skills and procedures, where the faculty just doesn't have enough time to go around and train everybody individually with the same level of time and skill. And so we're exploring using the Microsoft HoloLens to augment or enhance the training, where the students wear the headset, they walk up to the mannequin, and it overlays digitally 3D models and kind of step-by-step instructions on how to perform a chest tube insertion or a lumbar puncture.
That's quite interesting. I mean, clearly there's a spectrum of things as you first laid out, which is sort of the augmented reality, the filters, that kind of experience, all the way to the full virtual reality. What I'm really interested in, this idea of 360 video. Just in terms of like how engaging is 360 video from a learner perspective?
Yeah, I think we have some early examples of that. So we've been exploring, that you can just go take a 360 tour, and you can see that on YouTube today, where you're, kind of drone footage, or you're flying through and you can experience a place. If you have a virtual reality headset, like you can be in the space, looking around, kind of feeling that. But we've been exploring some technology recently where you're able to create an interactive 360 experience. So you can actually, participate in a conversation. So one of the courses we created, the experiences we created for a course, was for Korean language studies. The faculty was in Seoul, Korea last year. They recorded a bunch of scenarios at a mall or at a restaurant where the students could practice having a conversation. So it's a little bit, the video plays a response. You have to respond depending on what you say or do. A different scene replays. So you can have a pretty engaging, real experience through pre-recorded or interactive video.
That's quite fascinating, because you were really transporting the individual into the context. And that's kind of what makes it relevant. And contextual learning is probably one of the best forms of learning anyway.
And with some of the advances in voice recognition and a lot of these online platforms like Azure and AWS and Google Cloud, you can now use that natural language processing to determine what do you do next? So you can practice hearing what you sound like or even speaking.
That's fantastic. Audience, remember to add your questions in the chat. Now, I want to dig a little deeper into this. So earlier this year, Coursera and Michigan announced a new collaboration to create 10 XR enhanced courses to help learners in particular develop the human skills, future thinking, and knowledge in specialized topics, such as you just mentioned, Jeremy, like healthcare. The initial courses are scheduled to debut in early 2023 on Coursera. I can't really wait. I would love to experience this. So Lauren, I want to turn it over to you. Now, all of these courses will be accessible on mobile devices, I believe, like no VR headset is required. Is that right?
That is correct. All these courses will be available through the Coursera platform. So if you're using the Coursera app, you will be able to engage in the full course experience.
This is amazing, right? Because now you're expanding the number of learners who can really access this immersive content. The question I have, like, obviously, considering the learners with varied device setups and physical abilities and cultural backgrounds, what are some of the keys to creating inclusive and accessible immersive learning experiences?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a big challenge in a lot of ways. Really, we think about that as accessibility and inclusivity written large, and that's really important to us at Michigan, both as a public institution, but also each of the educators and experts working on these courses just deeply believe that we want them to be as inclusive and welcoming as possible to all of our learners. And designing for that variety of learners at this kind of scale is not easy, it's not perfect, and it's something that we're continually trying to learn from and improve upon. So to your point, not only do we need to account for, say, different learner cultural and demographic backgrounds, but we also want to take into account differences in types of devices, whether it's even feasible for a learner to have a certain kind of device, levels of internet access that might differ, different types of physical and cognitive abilities, different differences in language, all of these things across literally millions of learners here. So we work with our faculty very closely to make sure they're thinking as broadly as possible about the different needs and expectations that learners will be coming to the courses with, and how we can sort of address those in both the learning outcomes, but also the course design itself and our selection of what kinds of extended reality we're including in each course. We are very fortunate in that we've been able to make investments in our team to help sort of level up our own understanding of accessibility and inclusive teaching practices. And we even have roles within our team dedicated to those aspects of learning design. But even with those resources, accessibility in this space in particular is sort of an ongoing journey. And part of what we're hoping to better understand and be able to share with the development of these courses, how can learning designers, educators, platform partners like Coursera and XR companies sort of increasingly improve the XR learning experience for everybody in this way?
Makes a lot of sense. And I think it's obviously we're at the beginning stages of this. There's a question that just popped up here in this on the accessibility inclusivity side of the equation. How can we use XR for special education needs or disabilities students?
That's a great question. I'm curious for Jeremy's thoughts in terms of examples he may have seen. Something that comes to mind for me are a couple of opportunities, but also things I'd want folks to think carefully about. And so those opportunities, I think, really lend themselves to, as Jeremy mentioned, XR is great for experiences that might be challenging to provide in real life. And depending on a student's needs, if you are, if it's maybe not the best environment for a student to be in a really noisy or loud environment, for instance, how can we still introduce them to the experience, but be able to control for those factors more explicitly? How can we essentially create a safe space for someone to engage in art museums or nuclear reactors or all these different things that might really help them learn and understand, but not be subject to the stresses of that kind of environment, for instance? Or how can we help a student that might have certain physical disabilities who may be not able to engage in a certain kind of in-person experience, still engage in that experience virtually as well?
Yeah.
I think some of the concerns you might want to have there is that not all XR technology is obviously fully accessible in different ways.
Correct.
So you might run into sensory issues with
Mhm.
someone engaging in virtual reality, for instance,
Mhm.
or how long can they really wear a headset for, or stare at the 360 video? Will that create different issues for that learner? So just sort of thinking through what is that experience bringing to the table for them versus where might it be creating potential implications that you weren't thinking about. It's going to be really important. But Jeremy, I'm curious if you've seen examples in this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke perfectly about it. An example that two come to mind. One, right here on campus, we have our Earth Sciences group that takes trips out to the Grand Canyon and Jackson Hole every year, and they can only take so many students, and students with physical disabilities aren't able to, make that tour. So now they're each time they go out, they're taking 360 cameras. They're going to begin capturing what they're doing and then creating these remote experiences for folks that perhaps couldn't come with them. We're seeing this in a new way. Another one that comes to mind that I heard, I don't remember where it was, but they had built a virtual reality experience for people with autism to practice going through TSA at the airport. So it can be a very invasive, very sensory experience, so they can practice it in virtual reality before going through it.
These are fascinating examples. I think it's going to dramatically expand our ability to kind of include a larger population and get them to experience things, to get a little perspective on it or get used to those experiences before they can actually have to go into real life doing some of these things. I love it. There's another question which is like, for me, is there enough content? As you just mentioned, like you have to go like take 360 cameras, or essentially you're building it as you go, or kind of, how do you see that?
Yeah, so I can start, and I would definitely love Jeremy's thoughts here, but creating, it's definitely a challenge to find enough content at this point. And creating, high quality conventional learning experiences already takes a lot of time. And that becomes exponentially more if you're building 360 interactive video or augmented reality apps or fully immersive VR. And so it's going to take, I think, a lot of time for content creators to catch up to that demand. A second component of that is training a future workforce for being able to actually even develop and use XR tools, as well as showcasing to educators how to effectively use those. Those are both things that we're currently working on actually as part of our online learning portfolio. How can we develop that workforce of the future and then enable them to create great content? But it's something where there's definitely, I think, more demand right now than we're able to meet currently.
Got it. That's great. Jeremy, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think, when it's full virtual reality, it's building a video game, basically that same sort of skill set and software development, 3D art, storytelling. So it's pretty involved. There's a lot of new vendors and new, platforms to the market these days that are making it easier to create content and thinking about how do you create content faster as creators. So I think it's even in the last year since we've been discussing how we're going to do this, it's so many new options have popped up.
That's right. Maybe a question for you. This is from Natalia from LearnLight. What would you say is a good first step to get started with XR as an ed tech company?
Yeah, I would look at AR. I would look at things like Spark AR, Snapchat. They have tools to create filters, lenses. Kind of that is AR. They don't call it AR, but it is. And then I would be looking at 360. It's closer to traditional video. The skill sets to make it is, I think, easier to teach than to teaching all the full game engine work.
Yeah. Got it. I mean, clearly there's a spectrum of choices. You can start with the simplistic and go to the 360 video, go to AR, go to VR, as you kind of think about the use cases, specific use cases and the experiences you want to create. But you can simply start with a 360 video as an experience, which is much lower friction to kind of create, but also to consume, right?
Definitely. I mean, you can get $100 360 camera to hook into your smartphone right now and start filming. So it's pretty accessible.
That's awesome. So Jeremy, while I got you, let's turn to outcomes. At the end of the day, learning needs to lead to some sort of outcome. And in our case, we think a lot about employability. Learning to earning is a big outcome that we are focused on at Coursera. So to what extent can immersive learning support better job-focused or on-the-job training?
Yeah, I think it's already happening. It's already
Mm,
happening today. I mean, that's part of our 10 XR enhanced courses are focused at the future of work. So we're
uh-huh.
really thinking about this specifically. But you're seeing today companies like Accenture and Bank of America and Walmart using immersive training tools to
Mhm,
train their workforce. I mean,
mhm,
there's a
mhm.
VR headset, I think, in every Bank of America branch in the United States, or in every Walmart store in the U.S. For sure, they have a headset, and they
Wow.
do training now for specific skills. Black Friday training in
Wow.
terms of like how to experience, how to handle that
I see.
onslaught. It happens once a year, right?
Uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
so depending on the staff and the time when they get hired and if they've lived through it, um, yeah.
Interesting. So what are these folks saying? Like having, they're playing with it. Are they, what are they saying? What are you hearing from them about the role of XR in these skilling initiatives? Is it really changing the learner outcome or the training outcome? And then, I mean, like what kind of data points or proof points you're looking at this juncture?
Sure, yeah. No, I can't remember the study exactly, but like the level of engagement, because if you're wearing a headset, like
Uh-huh.
it's hard to be distracted, right? Like you can't look at your phone, you
That's
can't do
right.
anything else, like you're fully engaged. But the level of engagement and retention, I think, is like 4 or 5x, what it is through a traditional, presentation training
Mhm,
or kind of
mhm,
role-playing scenario. The,
mhm.
the analytics that you can collect through this, so you can see how many times did someone go through it, are they retaining, if you build assessment
Wow.
into that experience, you can gauge
Mhm.
what they're understanding and what they're learning through that piece. So I mean, Accenture's all in. They bought
Yeah.
60,000 VR
Wow.
headsets, and every new
Wow.
employee is doing
Yeah.
onboarding and training
Yeah. Yeah.
through their platform. So
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense to me. Fundamentally, when I'm talking to a lot of the employers and the chief people officers and the CHROs or the talent acquisition directors, their biggest question marks is like, can this person actually do the job? Like, what signals and proof they can show me? I can see they have the education. I can see they have the learning. I can see they've talked about it, especially as it relates to sort of the entry level type jobs or certain industry jobs. Where's sort of that expertise and showcase? So I love this idea that these companies are exploring and experimenting. I think it makes a lot of sense. Uh, there is a question I would love to just kind of bring it up before we get into sort of the final ideas here. Any interesting XR applications in art creation and inspiring young minds that you can share, in addition to all the operational workforce examples you already mentioned?
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much time we have, but if you want to go into the whole NFT
Just to take a
space,
minute.
I mean, the NFT space is all kind of intertwined with Web3, and
Uh-huh.
you can experience these virtual galleries, and so
Mm.
that's definitely a space. There's a VR application called Tilt Brush where you can draw in 3D space, and it's amazing. Like it really, you can engage with the art. I've had my children do it. They've created these amazing landscapes and
Ah,
pieces. So it's definitely, from that perspective, from our School of Art and Design, the animation,
mm.
thinking about AR, thinking about visualizing, types of work or types of experiences based on location.
Yeah.
Uh, like you hold up your phone and you can see what happened in that
Uh-huh,
space
uh-huh,
in history,
uh-huh.
and or kind of see a digital sculpture in a real place.
Wow, fantastic. Wow. You just kind of making it so exciting for the audience. I think they will just want to get started here, in my opinion. In the short amount of time that is left for us, Jeremy, um, in your opinion, what will immersive learning look like in 5 to 10 years? And will we still call it immersive learning, or will it become so mainstream and widespread that it's simply kind of how we think of when we think about education generally?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll call it immersive learning. I think it'll just be another modality, right? Be a way
Mhm,
to experience, learning in a new way. I think,
mhm.
when we showed the video there, there's, this virtual production, this kind of bringing these 3D effects and
Ah,
3D worlds into, you're still consuming it through a screen. You
mhm,
see it with a lot of the Hollywood and TV shows today. So I
mhm,
think there'll be a lot of that for sure. I
mhm.
think that the headsets, we'll see. They're still a little bit out of reach. The
Right.
$300. It's
Yeah.
more affordable, but not globally. That's still
That's right.
out of reach for a lot of folks. So I think,
Right.
and that will have a place. I think the AR and kind of mobile phones
Yeah.
that'll just become more ubiquitous. I mean, there's what 3.5, 4 billion mobile
Right.
phones on the
Right.
planet. Like that's the broadest reach I think today, and I think we'll just see that continue to. You're seeing folks like Apple lay the foundation for all of
Yeah.
their AR in their devices.
That's fascinating. I mean, that seems like the place to play to start with, to kind of generalize and kind of just get to a little bit of a mass adoption. And
Yep.
then I think the VR technology cost structure and the sort of even the headset models, et cetera, might
Yep.
evolve so much that they can also become more affordable, but also less intrusive in a way that there's
Right,
something
yeah.
hanging off of your head.
You're not gonna be walking around the streets with that on yet unless something bad happens.
That's awesome. Lauren, in our audience, we also have educators as well as business and government leaders from around the world. So what's your advice? How can they start preparing today to participate in and leverage immersive learning experiences in the near future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first step really is fully understanding, or at least better understanding this sort of very large umbrella space.
Mhm.
And so I would highly recommend, we have a great introduction to this, a specialization on Coursera actually called Extended Reality for Everybody, with Michael Nebling, one of our faculty from the U of M School of Information. It's an incredible introduction to XR and all the ways it can be leveraged, particularly for education. So I would suggest starting there. And then beyond that, I think the idea of getting some direct experience yourself is key. That means both as a learner. So taking one of our upcoming XR Enhanced Future of Work courses early next year is a great way to see what that experience is like on the learner side of it. And then experimenting with the creator side of it. So like Jeremy mentioned, think about something like interactive 360 video. It's quicker, it's more accessible, it's easier to produce, and it gives you that hands-on, how do I design an immersive experience for someone leveraging these kinds of tools. And then I think a third thing that folks can do is to come talk with us and with others who are working in this space. And let's continue to build a community around XR enhanced learning and the impact of that kind of immersive learning, or at some point just learning, can have across industry, government, and education.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You know, I've always been a little bit skeptical about like how fast and how much can we adapt. I was like, but this has been incredibly learning from experience for me. Just I'm so excited now. I'm going to go back and work with my team. Just like, how do we start leveraging these for Coursera learners and our educator partners? I think we should be able to help kind of spread the word and be able to kind of deliver these experiences to our over 100 million learners on our platform as well. That's exciting. Now, as we're getting close to conclusion here, thank you once again, Lauren and Jeremy, for joining us today. Do each of you have anything to share, sort of, parting thoughts, but also any upcoming events or publications or projects you would like to share with our audience? I'll start with Jeremy.
Yeah, upcoming. Well, we just held our annual XR Summit recently, so that'll be coming again next year. I think I am teaching a course this fall. I'm teaching Michael Nebling's course this fall, so I'll get much more hands-on experience with some of the students on campus here and what are they looking for in the future, and look forward to our course release here toward the end of the year.
Awesome. Lauren?
Yeah, I would plus one all that, and I would say, please definitely feel free to connect with us. You can find us on Twitter at @UMishOnline, and that way you'll be able to see all the new things that are coming out about the courses that we're creating, which are incredible, and the ways in which we're trying to really bring a research mindset to the idea of integrating extended reality into these kinds of online learning experiences at scale, and sort of sharing out the progress of all of those things via our Twitter and social media accounts. And really just come be a part of this community. This is a really exciting time, I think, to be a learner, because we've all sort of been immersed in the virtual experience of having to engage in a lot of things online anyway. And this actually, I think, makes it feel a little bit more authentic and a little bit more true to what we anticipate learning should be like. And so it's a really great time to just try something a little bit different.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, it's a great call to action for our audience, really thinking about, ultimately, this is sort of the experiential learning. This is something we've been talking about for the longest period of time. And what I continue to hear from a lot of the employers is, and both from a learner's perspective, which is like when they look at the kinds of jobs that are emerging, right? When I think about, especially in data, business, technology, et cetera, there's all like a lot of digital jobs, but there's a lot of tools and simulations that you could leverage as you get into these even digital emerging jobs. And these simulations and sort of the extended experiences through extended reality could actually create sort of a much bigger opportunity for a larger demographic of learner base to experience what it is like before you even want to pursue getting a certificate, pursue a degree in one of these careers if you want to, right? And so I see a world where there could be phenomenal applications of this, but also I think it just brings, to your point, like extended reality, it just brings things closer to reality for everybody that's involved. So I'm super excited. So thank you, audience, for joining us, and feel free to connect with Lauren or Jeremy for further engagement on this topic. Now, all recorded Coursera LinkedIn Live episodes are available for viewing on the Coursera LinkedIn page. Upcoming episodes are featured on Coursera's LinkedIn and other social media accounts. So keep an eye out and share episodes you found intriguing with your network. Until next time, I'm your host, Shravan Goli. Stay safe and keep on learning.